So you've heard about fast fashion, you know it's bad for the planet, but you're not exactly sure why. In today's video, I'm gonna break down exactly what makes fast fashion so awful for the planet and the people that live on this planet. If you're new here, my name's Elise. I post sustainable fashion content, as well as mindful consumption and living, and just trying to overall curb our consumption. If we're going to break down fast fashion, I think it only makes sense to start at the very beginning about how it's even made in the first place, because that says a lot about it. Fast fashion is made from ultra cheap materials that don't last long, so then companies can sell you more when it inevitably falls apart, or you get tired of it because it was part of a trend cycle. Those ultra cheap materials, 9 times out of 10, are petroleum byproduct, which is just a fancy word for oil. As scientists have proved and warned us about since the 1970s, burning fossil fuels releases excess CO2, aka carbon dioxide, into our atmosphere, which is one of the most prevalent greenhouse gases. Carbon dioxide is being released at an alarming rate, and a greenhouse gas essentially is something that is in the atmosphere and it acts as a blanket on top of the earth. So sun comes in, but it can't reflect and bounce off of, say, the ice caps because it's being trapped by this blanket of CO2, methane, etc., and it's melting our ice caps, it's evaporating, it's causing storms, it's causing a bunch of really bad things like drought, famine, etc. It's kind of this negative feedback loop where if light can't reflect and heat can't escape, it's only going to get worse and worse and worse and worse. We are now at a point where our Earth has warmed over 1.2 degrees Celsius since the onset of the Industrial Revolution in 1760. And recent findings have shown that we have probably also blown past the 1.5 degrees Celsius warmings that scientists have begged and urged us to stay under in order to slow these extreme negative feedback loops from happening in the first place. But clothing production isn't burning fossil fuels, so why does it matter and how is it even related? Amazing question. Real quick, if you're learning anything or enjoying this video so far, don't forget to give it a thumbs up down below. It really helps me out. As long as there's a demand for oil, it's going to be drilled for, and it's going to be burned off either in energy use, transportation, consumer goods packaging, and yes, even your fashion. The more we drill and release from the Earth's surface, the more that the globe is going to heat up to uninhabitable temperatures for most of humanity. So while fast fashion isn't outright burning oil, gas, or coal, it is still contributing to the demand for it, and thus it being burned off somewhere along the way. The manufacturing process itself requires a lot of energy, so you're going to refine the oil, then you're producing the byproduct. You get these little chips of polyester that you eventually melt down and then spin into yarn. Additionally, some fashion companies' solution to excess garments are to burn them. You heard me right. They are burning clothes because they are producing entirely too much of them. We've seen this from H&M's Take Back program, if that rings any bells for you. So we've talked about greenhouse gases and emissions and why that's so directly linked to fossil fuels, but we haven't talked about what else makes fast fashion terrible for the planet. Microplastics. While there's not a ton of research about how microplastics are affecting our bodies, rest assured that they are. We're finding them in our waterways, we're finding them in our bloodstreams, we're finding them in our organs and our tissues like our brain and our hearts. It's honestly really scary and it's under research, so we don't exactly know the extent to which they're affecting our bodies, but you can guess things like cancer or autoimmune diseases and like insane inflammation because we have these foreign objects in our bodies that shouldn't be there and our bodies can't naturally break down because why the hell do we have polyester in our bloodstreams? Point being, we are not separate from nature, and like it's kind of heartbreaking that it's taken such an extreme to really realize that. Like if you're putting plastic derived materials on your bodies into the oceans, into the land, like in landfill, or just dumping them in the ocean, obviously that's going to shed its microplastics, end up in your waterway. We all know about the water cycle, right? How things end up in our water. That's happening. We're then growing our food with it. We're then drinking it. We're consuming these plastics that we have literally put on the planet, and we're confused as to why this is happening. It's like we need to go back to Earth systems in third grade and learn about all these cycles again and understand how we are so inextricably linked to nature. We are not separate from nature. So To be baffled by these things is like honestly like a third grader could explain to you why it's happening. Next time before you buy an acrylic sweater for $20, look at it, see if it's already pilling, just walk away from it. Buy something that's made out of like natural materials, whether it's even like naturally semi-synthetic things like viscose or rayon or lyocell. Those things, like, yes, have been manufactured chemically, but at least they're made from things like wood pulp or bamboo. And it's also to think about the sheer amount of these clothes that exist. Of course, it's going to inundate our waterways and our systems and end up in our bodies because of how much we're producing. Here's a fun statistic. We have so much clothing that we can clothe the next 6 generations. That means my children's children, their children's children, and their children's children have enough that already exist on this earth to clothe them. It's really hard to quantify and to qualify even of how that looks like and what that feels like. But because we don't see this excess, this hoard of clothing, like literally right in front of us, it's very hard for people to quantify and see it in their day-to-day lives and see it that far in the future. Like, humans just genuinely are not hardwired that way. We are kind of hardwired for the now and the current and the present and survival, just evolutionarily speaking. And we've now gotten to this point where we can kind of like relax a little bit and produce and create, but we've done so to a point where we've disregarded the future entirely because of that kind of mindset. And that's no excuse, obviously, for over-consuming and then, of course, overproducing. Even with all of this clothing that already exists, we are still producing hundreds of millions of garments each and every year. Dare I say billions? I don't know if we're there yet, but hundreds of millions, I can guarantee you that. Yeah, so it's actually a lot worse than I thought it was. It is 80 to 160 billion garments every single year. That is so many. I can't even imagine like that much clothing in the world every single year. That's insane. I work in production in the fashion industry, albeit it's a little bit more sustainable than other places, but I see the purchase orders that go out. I see what we are asking factories to produce for us. I understand that that is just one company, and there are hundreds of similar retailers and companies out in the world that are producing just as much, if not more. It begs the question, where do all these unsold, damaged, defective goods go, or even when people are tired of them and done with them? It's an amazing question. They can either go to local thrift stores, where then they are inevitably inundated with the flood of clothing that they can't possibly turn over and sell quickly, or some companies directly sell to the global south, either in form of donations or literal trash. Nations in the global south then have to bear the brunt of all of this waste on their land that they did not create. There's a desert in Chile filled to the brim with just wasted clothing. Interestingly enough, resale markets in Ghana call this the dead white man's clothing, which is essentially saying that it's a foreign concept to have this much excess and this much waste. And by calling it as such, they're calling a spade, essentially. It's just calling out that this is not their burden, and it's unjust to have all of this literal shit dumped onto their land. And circling back to H&M, let's talk about Zara. Some retailers are literally just burning clothing because that's easier for them to get rid of, and maybe they don't want to be clocked for how much waste they're actually producing, so they are just going to literally burn the evidence instead. Which, circling back to the first part of the video, burning oil is bad. Burning clothes made out of oil is also bad, if not worse, I'd gander, because there's also a lot of other little elements that go into that chemically manufactured yarn. So that's more of like the planetary cost of fast fashion. Now, let's talk about people. Human hands touch every single garment that you have ever put on your body and worn. We way too easily forget that because we are not physically seeing the work being done right in front of us. But just because we can't see it and because it's out of sight, out of mind, doesn't mean that there's not people doing the work behind the clothing that we wear. Some people, I'm sure, think robots make our clothes, which fair. I mean, we're in a day and age where maybe that would be possible, but that's just not reality. It's garment workers that are sewing up your $20 night out dress or your beach basket weave tote that you're getting at an incredible deal. Cheap materials is only part of the equation when it comes to ultra fast fashion. The other part of the equation is putting it together, the cut and make of it, the cost of labor behind it. And I can guarantee you, people in those sorts of ultra fast fashion factories don't have labor protections. They have pretty awful factory conditions. It's really dismal, the protection and rights and wages that they're paid. A lot of times these garment workers, these factory workers, mostly women, don't have any other choice but to work in that factory that's popped up, and they're not being justly paid for it. They're being sorely underpaid for their labor. So next time you put something on that was a fast fashion purchase and you think to yourself, why is it falling apart already? I only wore it 3 times. I then want you to ask yourself, did you pay for it to last longer? That one piece that you're putting on your body is one of hundreds that a garment worker worked on that day. I can guarantee you that. So of course, they're not being paid to take the time and to really put care into it and make you a quality garment. You're not paying for it either. If there's a crushing workload and a near impossible quota to meet, I can guarantee you they're not going to sew up your garment in incredibly straight lines with lots of stitching, no loose threads, hems even and finished. It's just not gonna happen. It's unrealistic to expect. Fashion in general has a pretty murky supply chain, but fast fashion is very, very opaque, and you really can't see behind the curtain of these conditions of these factories and how the garment workers are treated. Fashion is the second most wasteful industry in the world. Let's talk about it. Fashion is a great way to express ourselves. I totally understand that. But those of us with disposable income, I have a shocking statistic for you. If you make $45,000 or $46,000 a year or more, you are in the top across the globe. Shocking statistic to follow. The globe's 10% top wealthy are responsible for 2/3 of climate change. I just want that to sink in for a little bit, because you might think, especially if you're in the US and with inflation and stagflation and fear of a recession and cost of living, $46,000 is not that much. But I can tell you, as someone who used to live on $18,000, $20,000, $22,000 a year, that yeah, once you do hit that level of income, you do have more disposable income. Even if you are feeling like you're still trying to make ends meet, it's enough for a TJ Maxx run. It's enough for picking up something from Home Goods for the season. It's also enough to be ordering takeout and takeaway and having waste that you're contributing. And it's just like, not to get into it too much, but I just thought those statistics were shocking, and I would share those with you to kind of put into perspective. If you have any sort of disposable income and spending power, unfortunately, with the way our systems have been set up, you are in some way, shape, or form contributing to climate change. I do think that is a direct result of capitalism, of what we're inputting into our capitalist system, and it's just exponentially magnifying our output. I hope this video was able to give you some insight into how damaging, extractive, and exploitative fast fashion truly is. It's not just out of sight, out of mind. It doesn't affect you. We all share this planet. Everything that we do affects one another at the end of the day, whether you realize it or not. If you're interested in how you can kind of become more conscious when you're shopping and even the clothing that you're looking for, I'll have my playlist of conscious clothing linked at the end of this one, just so you can check it out. Also in the description, there are a lot of really informative videos that I've made so far that I think you'll find a lot of use out of, and I really hope you enjoy them. Please like this video down below if you found it informative or useful. It really helps me out with the algorithm and help pushing this out to more people that could use this information and apply it to their day-to-day lives. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you want to join the fam. I post every Sunday, so make sure you don't miss a single upload. Until next Sunday, don't forget to be kind to yourself, others, and the planet. Bye.